What's up,
Snap.
folks? What's up? We're live. Welcome back to the Charm City Heavyweights podcast, brought to you by Great Eight Sports Memorabilia in Parkville, Maryland. This is the Ravens Super Show. We have one of our main contributors joining us tonight. Let's get started, Josh. What's going on,
Josh
buddy?
coming live from the man cave. He was about to skip my introduction, and I was about to
I
protest
was
it.
not. You were not going to
Oh,
protest. I already know. I already know
you
how
didn't
you get
flow
down.
in it like you
I
usually do.
did.
You didn't.
Yeah, I know. I
My
didn't.
co-host Josh coming live from the man cave. You kind of fucked up the flow, but keep going.
Out of all the things that you want to critique is the flow. Okay, I hear you. Joining us live from the great state of Pennsylvania, right above us. He used to work for 105.7 The Fan. He's one of the top
Right
contributors to
above
Charms.
us.
He's one of the
Oh
top
god.
contributors to Charm City Heavyweights. Kyle Andrews, what's going on, Kyle?
Man, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here, of course.
Kyle,
It's
he
all,
made it sound like you were in heaven or something, bro. He said from above us, like from up above, coming
I
live
said
from
the
heaven.
great state above us. I did not say no heaven. Oh my lord. Oh my
hey.
lord. Okay, whatever, Josh.
Look, I'm excited to be back. As always, always fun to talk about the hometown team. Well, not so much hometown anymore, but my hometown, not where I currently live, because this is, as we talked about before, Steelers / Eagle country. I don't know, man. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with the Ravens. It's gonna be exciting to talk about them tonight.
Yes,
And all
yes,
the
it
cuts
is.
and roster moves that they made.
I'm taking a little bit of exception to some of the roster cuts now. Again, I'm not a talent evaluator quite like the guys that get paid to do it. And Josh and I have been talking about it, in our group chat all for the last 2 days. I'm really surprised that Ben Cleveland made the team. That was the most shocking move
Yeah.
that I thought. I thought for sure Mustafa was going to make the active roster, and considering he has, the potential to play center and guard, I kind of think that he's like another McCary kind of player. And Cleveland he got beat up all preseason. Jalen Carter
Terrible.
embarrassed him in the first game, and he didn't really recover after that. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I didn't think Cleveland was going to make the active roster.
He's a draft pick. Sometimes being a draft pick protects guys, man. That's the only explanation I can think of. It makes sense.
Yeah,
It didn't protect
I'm
The
with
Telly.
that.
Ravens don't like cutting draft picks. I know, but the Ravens usually don't. They protect their draft picks
And it's like maybe they
or see something we don't.
they yeah. I mean, that's one thing, and then maybe they thought they could finesse a trade, and I'm like, you're not finessing a trade with Ben Cleveland. I'm sorry.
No.
Now when it comes to Sam Mustipher, I'll say this: like, I think that him having that starting experience is really important because the Ravens don't have, like a true backup center, a guy that center is his main position. Patrick McCary, a guy who was a tackle in college. I watched a ton of them at Cal, and he only played tackle. He mostly played left tackle at Cal. So I didn't expect I didn't expect him to play center in the NFL. I'll tell you that. But he was built more like a center.
Hmm.
Had shorter arms. Not the best length for a tackle, but he's honestly a better tackle in the NFL than what people thought he was going to be, and he's been a pretty valuable piece to this team. So I'm kind of shocked that they didn't add a center, behind Linderbaum, but we'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens. Other than that, Travis Vokalek, he's got to get claimed by somebody one day because that dude was balling.
Yeah.
We did put him on the practice squad today, so that was a little bit of a shock. Melvin Gordon's on the practice squad. They added Anthony Brown, and
They
it
like
makes me-
Anthony Brown. He wasn't going nowhere.
yeah. They added Dante
Ben Mason
Demas,
on
Ben Mason, Tariq Black. I'm really kind of shocked to see Shamar Bridges was not added on there, even though I know that he kind of struggled this preseason. He was a preseason star last year, but the wide receiver room was super crowded.
It's crowded. It's too crowded. There's no room for him. He had no chance.
I'm happy for Tylan Wallace.
Other teams.
Tylan Wallace had a fantastic preseason.
He did.
He made the most.
Because I think this offense is gonna. I'm not saying. Look, I've always liked him. I liked him when we drafted him. But I think this offense is a lot more suited for Wallace because it's space, and that's where he's good in space. And I know all Ravens fans who pay attention to see Wallace get 2 touchdowns, and they were both back shoulder throws, timing routes that we have never fucking seen here, and it's always drove me nuts because we never did shit like that. And to see that, even though it was just a preseason, felt really nice, because fuck, everybody does it but us. It always seemed like. So I'm happy that I'm happy for Wallace. Like I said, I think it's going to be hard for him to get snaps and get on the field. He was a shoo-in anyway. He's so good on special teams. That was his spot. He wasn't going anywhere. But hopefully he can earn some offensive snaps. I think he deserves to have some routes out there.
Yeah. Kyle, I wanted to ask you. I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. Does it surprise you that Duvernay made the team, considering where he's at in the pecking order, not just on the wide receiver depth chart? I'm talking about in terms of pass catchers, and then with his salary and he's only really one-dimensional as a returner. But it seems like right now on this team we got 3 guys that can return besides him. Tylan Wallace can do it. Keaton Mitchell can do it, and
Duvernay wasn't going nowhere.
Justice Hill.
Justice Hill can do it. So
yeah.
So you have 4 potential return men, and it just seems like carrying that $4.5 million salary cap hit. You would think that I'm not saying that Treadwell should have made the team over him or anything like that, but is it surprising that he made the 53?
I don't think it's totally surprising considering the fact that I think that the Ravens, instead of, you remember last year, they would rotate offensive linemen at times, and that took forever. Rotating receivers isn't going to take as much. And you want to keep Odell Beckham fresh. You want to keep Rashad Bateman fresh. So I think very early on in the season, it'll be important that Duvernay's there just because you want to keep those guys fresh and you want to be able to use every single offensive weapon that you have. I mean, this is the thing. Last year, we were talking about Devin Duvernay as a guy that could be just a weapon, somebody that you could use out of the backfield at times, a guy that you could get on slant routes and screens. And now, because we have 50 people, if you're the Ravens front office at receiver, and they built that receiving room so well. They're still thinking about the injury history that a couple of those other guys have. So
exactly,
it makes sense to keep him at least for this time. If guys prove that they're healthy and Devin Duvernay doesn't do anything offensively, which I'll be honest with you, in this space that he's gonna have, I think he is gonna do something. I think he is gonna be decent in this offense. And if Devin Duvernay gives you 300, 400 yards in this offense, that's a successful season for him, especially with all the people ahead of him. So that's my opinion on him. I think he's gonna be a guy that is gonna get his at times, and that's all you need him to do. If he's the 4th guy or the 5th guy, that's not a bad situation to have. He just can't be the first guy.
Well,
That's
look, of
fair.
course, like I
Ja,
agree with that, Kyle, because Odell and I love Odell and Bateman, but both have not been able to stay healthy in recent years. Bateman going all the way back to college, he wasn't able to stay healthy. So to me, Duvernay was always a shoe in. I don't care what his cap hit was, and I know we got other guys who can return, but don't forget Duvernay was a Pro Bowl returner as well. Um, but I always thought just the depth in the receiver room had to be there because, like you said, Kyle. Those guys could go down anytime. Or if you want to save those guys, it's a long season, man. You need as many good wideouts as you can.
And I'll even add this in there too. Having you know, I know people don't love Nelson Aguilar. Like so a lot of people are like,
Oh,
"Oh,
I'll
that's a
keep forgetting about him, dude.
yeah." And Nelson Aguilar is a guy that if he's the fourth or fifth guy, that's not a bad situation either. He just
I
can't.
don't know.
These are guys that just can't be the first guys, and that's fine because you have possibly. I mean, if all pans out, you have three guys that could be that.
Yeah,
It just depends on how the offense works that day because they all do different things too. That when I look at all three of those guys with Zay Flowers, Bateman, and Odell, all three of them can do different things. They all occupy different spaces of the field.
yeah,
Odell, I think at this point in his career is going to be more of a possession guy, which is
yeah.
cool. Zay's going to burn you over the top, and then Rashad Bateman's a little bit more. I think if he plays to his potential, like what I saw from him at Minnesota, he's a physical receiver when he's healthy. So I think that having those three guys plus Nelson Aguilar, who is another guy that's a little bit more physical, and then Devin Duvernay, who's a speedster, and then Tylan Wallace, what we saw from him at Oklahoma State, that should give anybody who liked his game there some excitement. I think that they have a really strong receiving room, and that's something that is finally a strength after what has it been? It's almost been 30 years that the team's been in existence, and this is the first year that I'm like, this is a good receiver room, like a fully fleshed
Don't
out,
even sound right.
and like because like in 2014 that was the closest it got. It's like
Yeah,
2012, 2014, and this year, those are the 3 years that I'm like, okay, the Ravens receiving room is before it was above average, and I think this one can be elite if all goes
yeah,
to plan. That's
yeah.
like, but all has to go to plan, and you got to get your guys the ball. So we'll see.
Kyle, what's your concern with Lamar Jackson?
His deep ball accuracy. I mean, that's what it is. Because the thing is, he's not. I tell people all the time. I was like, Lamar intermediate and short game, he's accurate. Um, people sit there and they'll say like Lamar doesn't have the arm strength. That's BS. Lamar has the arm strength. He just needs to get a little bit more accurate in those touch passes. And I think with more volume as a passer, that's only going to get better as the season goes on. And then he'll be able to understand where Zay Flowers is going to be a little bit more. And I think that's a huge thing. If you can figure out like that I mean, we saw it a little bit with Marquise Brown, where those deep shots, if they landed, Ravens are picking up 60 yards because of that guy's speed. And now I
Yeah,
think with Zay Flowers, you added that dimension back to the offense that you didn't really have last year because as fast as Devin Duvernay is, for whatever reason, like they weren't sending them deep. It just
no,
seemed like they just stopped them after 5 yards, and then they had every single good receiver that they had on the team. They just put them on the same side of the field, and it was a really congested offense. So I think Lamar, he's gonna have some more spacing with this offense. He'll be able to, feel a little bit more comfortable attacking the deep third of the field. So I expect big things from him, but that's my biggest concern of his. But I think he'll get better. He'll improve on that this season.
yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, this is like we've said multiple times on this show. Like there's no more excuses. The receiver room is great. You got your money. Running backs are great. Offensive line should be good. There's no more excuses. It's either put up or shut up. Um, but what do you feel about Zay? Doesn't he just feel different, Kyle? Oh, I know in Baltimore, in my opinion, the best receiver we've ever drafted was probably Torrey Smith. Marquise Brown is probably second or third, somewhere in there. we had Mark Clayton, Travis Taylor. So many of these guys didn't work out the way they're supposed to. But Zay Flowers just feels different, man. Perryman, forgot about him. But doesn't Zay just feel different? And we've seen it in the preseason. Like he's got. I feel confident and comfortable saying. I know he's a rookie, hadn't played in a real game yet, but it just seems like he's going to be a factor. He has it.
I mean, if you watch him, everybody always talks about Zay's breakaway speed, but if you watch him go to work on a route, I just see him. His hands are crazy. Like he uses his hands to get open a lot of times. Like it's a lot of karate chops and things like that. Like things that you would see from a defensive end, right? And he's swatting guys' hands down, and then he's breaking past them.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to show you the amount of work that he puts in his craft on a day-to-day basis. His route running's crisp. He has strong hands. And for a guy his size, like I like the way that he plays football. He doesn't play football like a guy that's 5'9", 5'10".
And he's bulky, man. I know he's short, but he's not. Marquise Brown is short and like kind of scrawny. You know what I mean?
Wiry. He was like,
yeah, but he's Zay is like, Zay is like thick.
Yeah, Zay is built like a running back, which is good. Yeah. Honestly, I think if you're a smaller receiver, it's better to be built like a running back than it is to be like be built like a smaller receiver. Because if you're a smaller receiver, the injuries pile up. And I think with Zay, he's beating guys on the outside. I mean, he put Emmanuel Forbes in a blender. Let's talk about that. Like that's a first round
repeatedly.
Yeah, it had him on skates, and that's the thing. If Emmanuel Forbes is a first round rookie cornerback, and Zay Flowers is just having his way with them, and putting them on skates, I think that sky's the limit for Zay Flowers. I mean, Emmanuel Forbes is a rookie, so we'll take that with a grain of salt. But this guy gets open. He beats people over the top. I think he's going to be special. I really do.
Me too. And Lamar said in an interview with Peter King or whatever that dude's name is. It Peter King, Matt?
Peter King at SI, right?
Yeah. Well, he interviewed Lamar the other day, and apparently the day of the draft, which we all know is the day, Lamar and the Ravens finally had an agreement. He requested, I really like Zay Flowers. He's from the same area as me. He's going to be special. So it looks like the Ravens, went with their franchise quarterback, won it.
Yeah, that's the first.
You got to do. You got to do it. I mean, if we're gonna, err on the side of caution and tend to believe what was put out in the media, Lamar asked for.
Lamar said it. Lamar said it.
Yeah,
out of his mouth.
Lamar asked for OBJ. He asked for another.
He wanted Hopkins too.
He did, allegedly.
Allegedly.
I'll say that allegedly. You now the thing is, you got a new offense. It seems like the guys are adapting to it. It's time to do your thing. Let's see if you can get back to that 2019 version of Lamar where you're setting the league on fire. The only difference now is that you're a $260 million quarterback, and this isn't a secret anymore. Your offensive coordinator has been nationally talked about for the better part of the last 5 months. This new offense has been talked about. Zay Flowers is getting attention from multiple media outlets, local and national. So, yeah, you got your work cut out for you at number 8.
And don't forget that the offensive coordinator has publicly stated multiple times now he has full control, has the keys to the offense. So, he really has zero excuses. Zero.
Yeah, and
he's put up or shut up, bro. And I don't want a one and done in the playoffs. No, he needs to make a run, man. AFC Championship, he's got to do something. Yeah, Super Bowl. He's got to.
Championship is very necessary on his end to prove.
Yeah, he needs a run. He definitely needs a run.
Unless the defense throws it away.
That's what's scary, and I hope we get into that. Yeah.
But before we transition to the defense,
I'm worried about the defense.
We've been noticing a different Mark Andrews in camp.
And pissed, it seems like.
He seems like he's been utterly pissed off almost every single practice. So my question to you, Kyle, is is Andrews seeing that he's not the focal point and he's getting upset, or do you think that he's just trying to be a new, edgier kind of veteran leader?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think it's more the latter than it is the former. I think that he is just trying to be a more vocal guy in a locker room, and a guy that's just like, I wanna beat the ever loving crap out of my opponents. Which, as a tight end, you gotta be a hammer, right? You gotta be a guy that's gonna go across the middle and bully linebackers, bully safeties, the bullies of the defense. You gotta be the bully of the offense, and so I think that Mark Andrews is showing that he wants to be that guy that's gonna punch people in the mouth if push comes to shove. And I don't think that's gonna affect him in the regular season. I think he's smarter than that. I covered Mark his first year when he was a rookie, and I don't think his personality's changed. I just think that he's showing more of it. Um, and he's a guy that is he's gonna put his team first, so he's not gonna make any boneheaded decisions. Um, that goes for a lot of these dudes on the offense. Like, I mean, I think Lamar is gonna love having Mark Andrews be a little bit more vocal and being more of a bully, because that's gonna set the tone for the offense. They cannot be a soft like like I mean there was a joke last year where somebody said the offense was a softens. Like they were soft. Like they didn't have that bully mentality. I think they were still bullies. They were just banged up. And I think that this offense isn't going to be. They're not going to be soft, and they're not going to be. I mean, if they're not banged up, I think this offense could be as good as it has been since Lamar got here. And I think that's the biggest thing, that they need somebody that's going to establish that mentality, and that all starts with the offensive line and the tight ends. And I think with Mark Andrews, he's been that guy for years now, and he's got to prove it even more this year. And I think he's going to still have another big year.
Hey Kyle,
I
where
mean,
do
I
where do
think
you see where do you see Pat Ricard fitting in? Do you think his role changes somewhat in this offense compared to Greg Roman's pound it?
I do, and I think Pat Ricard's going to play. I could see Pat Ricard playing more of a kind of like a bunch of different things, where he plays fullback, he plays tight end, he plays a little O line on extra packages, and then they go unbalanced formation. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with Patrick Ricard as the unbalanced offensive lineman, and they
Yeah,
send somebody else out.
yeah.
So I don't think that's a mistake right there to keep him. I know some people are like, well, the offense is going to open up. What do they need another fullback for? And I'm like,
They
Ravens
paid him. They
offense.
got it. They're keeping him. I mean, they paid him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they can't get rid of him, and I think that
No.
keeping him, adds another dynamic to the offense. Like, they could go. This is the thing. They don't have to completely get rid of what they did last year. I think
Yeah.
they needed to add to it. I think the biggest problem was that you cannot take away that last year and say, okay, well, the running game, as good as the running game was, we're just gonna scrap all that. No, you gotta add to that, and then bring in the passing game too. And I think that having Patrick Ricard there, you could still have that smash mouth offense that you want at times, because sometimes you gotta grind it out. You gotta grind the clock out, and it has to be an ugly game. But other times you need to air the ball out. And I think they have a more versatile offense. So having Patrick Ricard come back and having those three tight ends and having all those receivers, I think this offense is way more versatile than it's ever been.
that's a fair assessment because we've been questioning for months where he goes. And when we had Kadre Ismail on the show, what was that, about a month ago, Josh?
Yeah,
Where
about that.
he thought that Ricard was going to be moved to offensive guard, and they did that temporarily. He
And I
shut it
don't think it
down.
worked. Yeah, it got shut down quick.
Yeah, I don't think he was. I don't think he was down for that move, even though he is the size of a left guard.
He get paid more if he played left guard. That's the thing. If he was able to work there, he would have gotten paid more.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, he would have gotten a pretty paycheck for that.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of left guard, John Simpson getting named the starter. He wasn't bad in Vegas. Left guard always seems to be a question mark year after year. It seems like it's been that way since Assembly left. And I mean, that's a better part of a decade now where it seems like every couple of years we have a new left guard, whether it's been Ben Powers or Makari or Skura or anybody like that. I know
Somebody's playing guard every.
Remember Ben Grubbs?
Yeah, Ben Grubbs
I love Ben Grubbs.
Yeah.
Auburn.
Ben Grubbs might have been the best left guard that they had. That wasn't except for the time Yonda played left guard temporarily when his shoulder was messed up.
Yeah.
So
Yonda was.
he was the best offensive lineman outside of Jo that the Ravens ever had. So
easily.
It's hard to follow up on Jo, but Marshall Yonda did his best impression, even though he was like 6-7 inches shorter. I mean,
I put them two on the same level, honestly. Different positions, but both.
Yeah.
Oh, he should be a first.
He's got to be. He's got to be. He was one of the best. I mean, and that goes back to the left guard position. Like, the only time that I can remember the Ravens having a steady left guard, like you said, was Marshall Yonda and Ben Grubbs, and that's something that, I mean, hopefully with the kid that they just drafted from Oregon. I don't want to mess his name up, and I'm gonna try to phonetically pronounce it one of these days. But that kid's a talent, and I think he'll get better. One thing I would have said is that I would have liked to see Faalele play a little bit of left guard, because I know Jonathan Ogden his rookie year played left guard. That's what people tend to forget, because you had
yes, he did.
Why am I going? Yeah, he had him playing left guard, and I think that's something that some of these big guys, if they can move inside for a year, get some more reps, and then go back out to the outside, I think that helps them too, because they learn different ways to work with the O line. So, I think it's I would have liked to see that, but they went with John Simpson, the more steady veteran presence, which that's John Harbaugh's MO. He's always going to go with the veteran presence.
Yes, it is. That is Harbaugh's go-to, the veteran with the steady hand. Switching over to the defense, I know that we've all expressed concern. Josh has expressed a lot of concern. I really am not. Now the thing is, Houston doesn't really bother me in terms of their wide receiver core going into next Sunday. I would feel more confident if we went out and grabbed Bradley Roby or somebody else. That's Desmond King got picked up by Pittsburgh today. Our cornerback situation is not good, and right now the way week 2 is looking against Cincinnati, if Joe Burrow is full speed, this is going to be ugly. This might be a shootout, and I'm not comfortable with the cornerback room right now, Kyle, Josh. I don't know about you guys, but I'm certainly not comfortable going into week 1 where Brandon Stevens and Rocky Sin are your starters.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable either with that, and I think that's gonna be a problem for them week 1 and week 2. Week 2, I mean, they're gonna get. I fear for them that they're gonna get carved up like a Thanksgiving turkey on week 2, just because we saw what happened that first Bengals game. Even though if I'm not mistaken, they won that first Bengals game last year, but we've seen in years past where the Bengals, I mean, who was it? Joe Mixon was catching passes and going stupid against them at some points. And that's not ideal. And I think those corners from back then were better than the corners that they have now, depth-wise. And the fact that they don't have depth, and we've seen what the Bengals can do to the Ravens defense, that's terrifying. And I don't think I'll say this about the Texans. Everybody thinks the Texans are just going to roll over and get punched in the mouth. And you can't do that with any NFL team.
Not with DeMeco Ryans.
DeMeco Ryans is tough. Yeah, he's a tough guy. And their offensive coordinator also came. He's a Kyle Shanahan guy. Um, he was a passing game coordinator, and I thought the Ravens were going to take a look at him at OC before they brought in Monk in. But those two things should worry the crap out of everybody because we've seen what Kyle Shanahan offenses look like. I mean, the Ravens. Hey, look, 2014, the Ravens had a Shanahan offense. They had Gary Kubiak, and we saw how great that offense was. And the offense has only gotten more, complex since then. We're talking about what is it, 9 years later, and Kyle Shanahan's been to, the Super Bowl and twice actually, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Think with the Falcons, and then he also went with the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. But that should terrify people. I mean, if they have a guy that knows, he knows how to work against all defenses that are more aggressive. Mike McDonald's a lot less aggressive than Wink was, but I mean, I would drop some guys in the coverage, make the quarterback work. I mean, they got Stroud, and the Ravens do well against rookie quarterbacks, and that should be their saving grace, but you don't know. Also, John Michie's back too. That's the one thing that also concerns me too, because he was a beast at Alabama, and I'm glad his health is good. I was, also a cancer survivor, so I'm glad that he's good too. But I mean, that's something that they have to watch out for is him and Stroud. And Stroud can carve up defenses on a short passing game too. So, they have to focus on that. But I think corner has to get better as the season goes on. It has to. Marlon Humphrey is very needed, and for him to be injured the way that he was, that sucks for the Ravens defense. And hopefully he's back. But this cornerback room, I mean, it's depleted, and they did not address it like I thought they would in the draft. I thought they were gonna go corner pretty high. I thought they were gonna try to trade into the second round, and they just neglected the position. Unfortunately, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, but like cornerback needed it. It was like, man, it was underwater. I mean, and now it's looking like that sub that got crushed. But
Yeah.
it's not looking good.
It's not, and it's a little telling how the Ravens cornerback situation has been. And I'm gonna kind of backtrack it to 2019 with Eric DeCosta's second draft, or his first draft. I'm sorry, his first draft. Amon Marshall, Sean Wade, Brandon Stevens, Jalen Armour Davis, Pepe Williams, Caillou Blue Kelly. The first two are no longer with us. We don't even know what Jalen Armour Davis looks like. Pepe Williams is banged up, and Caillou Kelly is now a Seattle Seahawk. So we have been throwing, veterans out there to see who can at least give you a half season that's good. As much as I agree with the premise of not bringing Peters back, it looks like a very bad move in hindsight that we didn't bring him back. And I'm not saying Rocky Sin is a bad cornerback because he's not. But if the Ravens said that Marlon Humphrey's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season, we're not going to see him till November. That's just how it goes. That's how it goes. We know Harbaugh, you got to pretty much double or triple any length of the time injury-wise what comes out of his mouth in front of a microphone.
Yeah, I've
been hoping and praying that Eric makes a trade, does something. Find somebody to add to it.
At this point, who are you? I
don't know.
What team is going to give up
a job?
I know it's his job, but I'm thinking about it logically, Josh. Kyle, you can chime in as well. If you're looking at it now,
the trade deadline, right?
Yeah, you're going to have to because everybody's 0-0. Everybody thinks that they're in it. The last thing you're going to do is give a contending team that might be a piece away from being a Super Bowl contender one of your top 3 cornerbacks. So let's face it, everybody starts 3 cornerbacks in the NFL now. The nickel defense is pretty much your standard operating defense across the league. So a team that we think we can pick bare bones from isn't going to just roll over and give us their number 2 cornerback or their number 3 cornerback without asking for something ridiculous in return. Now, I thought we were going to try and make a move for Kendall Fuller, but what do they want? What would the Commanders want for Kendall Fuller? Are they asking for a 4th round pick? Or are they asking for Patrick Queen? That's 2 totally different things. So that's where I'm at with it. I think that they're going to have to do something. I think Roby might be the answer temporarily between Roby, Darby, and Yasin. That could be feasible until Marlon Humphrey returns.
Definitely. Or Kyle.
Kyle had a little bit of a technical difficulty. He'll be back.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with it, though, Josh. I don't believe
it's scary.
that.
That's obviously the biggest concern outside of the pass rush is the secondary. But I did, talking about the Bengals could carve us up. Yeah, they could, but I honestly feel like Mike McDonald has a good key in on Burrow. And I know last year we shut Burrow down all 3 games, honestly. But we had Peters, Humphreys, and I get it. But I don't know. I have faith. I think he's a great coordinator. He'll figure it out. Don't forget, we still got Kyle Hamilton back there, Marcus Williams. You know what I mean? We'll be all right.
Yeah. That's the only thing that's our saving grace right now is that we got C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson without JT, Jonathan Taylor, in our first 3 weeks. I think if we can manage to go into Cleveland 2-1 at worst, I think we're in good shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the thing. Like, if they, I do agree with that. I mean, like, they're gonna have to be bullies with those young guys. Just beat the young guys in the submission. Like, that's the only way. They gotta flex their muscles a little bit against those younger quarterbacks. That's what they do best, right? That's what John Harbaugh's teams do best. That's what Ravens defenses do back the best. They pin their ears back and they make rookie quarterbacks' lives hard every time they play against them. So I mean, that's what it should be. Now, we all know that when it comes to Joe Burrow, that's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, if they even get close in that game, it'll be that would be great, right?
It would be great, and also, how healthy is Burrow going to really be? The calf injuries, leg injuries linger for a while. So, are we going to be getting 100% Joe Burrow? Or are we going to be? So do I. He's arrogant. But the thing is, part of the reason why I hate is like he's good though. That's the reason. One of the reasons why I don't like him as a fan. I respect the game. I respect this game as a player, but Joe Burrow is a douchebag for all intents and purposes. But getting to the pass rush, it was kind of funny that Kyle mentioned pinning our ears back. We kept 6 outside linebackers on the roster as opposed to our normal 5. We kept Tavius Robinson. We kept Ojabo and Owe, of course, Clowney and Bowser. Bowser's going to miss the first 4 weeks. So Malik Ham, Baltimore native, made the team. I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do with him. He's very raw. He's a project, and I'm excited to see how they can incorporate him into this pass rush. I don't know about you guys, but Tavius Robinson and Malik Ham have high motor, high energy off that edge. And then you throw in Clowney with Owe and Ojabo. I think we got the potential to have a pretty good pass rush this year.
I think the pass rush is upgraded from last year, honestly, talent-wise. And I think depth wise too. Like you remember last year, at one point they only had like 3 pass rushers, and that is very different this year. And then by the time Tyus Bowser comes back, they'll have so many that they might have to, move one. Unfortunately, because I think the depth is there right now, even without Tyus Bowser. Um, because also Jabba wasn't healthy last season. That's the other thing that we got to
Right.
keep in mind. He's fully healthy. He's coming off the Achilles injury, having a year off. He got a couple games last season. He's good to go. Odafe is another year older, another year wiser. Jadeveon Clowney's a good run stopping, edge shedding guy. That's what people need to keep
Yes.
keep in mind. Jadeveon Clowney is not, a guy that's going to kill people on the pass rush, and that's fine because I don't think that's what they need at that position. I think they need a guy that's an edge setter, and he is an edge setter. He is, the Courtney Upshaw of the team at this point, and that's fine. Like if he can,
Very good comparison. Very good
and if he,
comparison.
yeah, if he can do that, I mean, the Ravens are set pass rush wise because he's a guy that's just gonna hold. He's gonna hold his own. He's gonna take guys away. So I think they're gonna be set. They have some depth there, and Malik Ham. Let's go back to him. I love Malik Ham's motor. I think he's a guy that he's a fighter. He wants to try to scrape and claw for every single spot that he's gonna get. He's gonna get some snaps. I think in week 1 even if he's available. Because they always have to set some guys out as inactives, but if he is able to play week 1, I wouldn't be surprised if he got in a couple of different packages. And then the other thing too is with these rushers, I think they're going to get a little bit more creative because you remember when Zadarius Smith was in Baltimore, they had that NASCAR package where he would line up as a nose tackle, and they would just have him pin his ears back and speed rush guys. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Ravens tried to do that with some of the guys that they have now. I don't know who that NASCAR nose tackle will be, but
Might be Clowney.
yeah, it might be Clowney, might be him, might be I wouldn't be shocked if like Oway got a couple of those sometimes. But it'll be interesting just to see all those guys together and how they work with the D line that they already have, because that D line I think is also improved this season too.
Yeah, for sure. Transitioning right into the D line, I need to see at least Pierce be healthy for more than one game, because it seems like he's been stealing money the last couple of years between Minnesota and Baltimore. He could have probably put a harness on that shoulder and played all year. Once you tear your bicep, it can't get much worse, honestly. That's one of those injuries where once you tear it, you tear it. And some guys can play through the pain, some can't. I've never torn my bicep, so I don't know. But Travis Jones, Justin Madubuike, Broderick Washington, we're going to have Brent Urban back. They said that he's probably going to come back from one of these guys going IR. I think that we are pretty deep at defensive line as well. I'm expecting Travis Jones to step up and have a better year than he did last year.
Why? What did he show you in the preseason?
I'm not saying that he showed me anything, but my expectations for him are a lot more than what he showed, because he was getting pushed around by second and third string offensive linemen.
Sure was.
And you don't need that. He needs to be one of those dudes that just goes out there and wrecks people. And I guess it's because I just have a higher expectation for the D lineman, and both of you guys are Ravens super fans as well as I am. D line in Baltimore is a storied tradition, going back to the days of Burnett, McCrary, Goose, Adams, through the Haloti Ngata era and the Kelly Gregg era, Trevor Price.
I say don't forget Kelly. Shit.
Yeah, I can't forget Buddy Lee.
Campbell when he was
Calais Campbell. Even guys like Corey Redding over the years, and like you mentioned, Courtney Upshaw, Brandon Williams. We've had studs in that interior line essentially our entire existence. And if you want to look at outside linebackers, it's the same thing. The edge guys, McCrary, Burnett, Bolware, Sharper, Suggs. We had Doomerville for a while. Zadarius Smith, Matt Judon. Like, we're used to these guys being dogs on that front seven, and we need them to be the dogs that we're expecting. So that's why I'm saying Travis Jones. We drafted you in the third round. You had a late first, early second round grade. Earn that shit this year, because if not, it's going to be a long season if we got to rely on Pierce. And Pierce's availability is the biggest question.
Yeah, he's been battered with injuries the last 2-3 years. I think if you get anything out of him, it's going to be a plus.
Yeah. And Kyle, I mean, how do you feel? What's your thoughts on the interior D line?
I think that, the interior D line, they just need health, right? If they're healthy, I think they'll be better than they were last season. And I think Travis Jones, he has to step up, because like they don't have a ton of depth at that position. I don't think they have any depth, honestly, right now as it currently stands. It looks like Broderick Washington and Matabike are the only two at their positions. And I don't think they have a ton of flexibility when it comes to doing. I mean, they don't have the same amount of depth that other positions have. Like linebacker positions, they all look like, I mean, this is the deepest I've ever seen a linebacking core since McDonald's been there. I mean, the past 2 years, like this is his linebacking core. Maybe he'll get more creative where he's not using a D lineman as much and he's just like pass rushing the crap out of guys. Or, some of the guys that they have currently can, fill in, like we said, for the NASCAR package that they might have. So,
I mean, yeah.
They'll have to get creative. Because I think it's not going to just, it's like typically speaking, we expect the push to come from the interior defensive line. We expect them to collapse the pocket and cause, wreak havoc for everybody else. But I think in this situation, they're going to have to be as, flexible as humanly possible and get guys rotated off the field and see as many packages as possible, because we might not see 3 down linemen. We might see, we could see like 6 linebackers or something like that on the field at once. So
it wouldn't shock me if Malik Harrison, Trenton Simpson, Roquan, PQ, and all those guys were on the field at one time with either Clowney or Ojabo or Owe in that NASCAR nose spot. And it could, if he gets creative, we could be in for a, surprisingly good defensive season. But I'm cautiously optimistic we'll get it figured out. Before we wrap the show, Kyle, I know that we're going to be back next week for the Texans preview show. Is there anything that you think the Ravens need to address between now and week 1 that would make you more comfortable going into the season?
Cornerback.
Cornerback,
like,
okay.
That's it right there. It's like I would say cornerback, left guard, they'll figure it out. I'm not worried about left guard because I feel like the Ravens are one of those teams that like you could plug anybody in offensive line wide and they figure it all out. So they'll get there.
Yeah, Josh, and other than cornerback, is there anything that you think the Ravens need to do that, between now and September 10th?
Cornerback, I mean, that's the obvious. That's my main concern as well. But, maybe another interior D lineman to rotate
Fair
in
enough.
with Matabike and Broderick Washington.
Well, there you have it, folks. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. That's a wrap on the show. Kyle, let everybody know where they can find you.
You can follow
on social media.
You can follow me at Kyle J Andrews _ on Twitter. Yeah, and that's about it. And then you could also read Baltimore Sports and Life. I'm right in there. We also have another Ravens podcast over there. We're gonna try to do some cross-platforming at some point. Get guys from there over to here. Hopefully, we could get some guys from here over to there too. Josh has to be on his best behavior. I know Matt
I
will be,
will. I will. I promise.
but yeah, follow them as well at let me see what BSL's Twitter handle is. I should have that right up there. Be More Sports Life. There we go. At Be More Sports Life. Follow them on Twitter. That's BSL, Baltimore Sports and Life.
And then I know you got your Capital Crossover podcast that's going to be launching soon for an NBA preseason as well.
Yes, we're going to be talking about the Wizards. Still in the process of getting all the guys together. I'm looking forward to it. You can follow them follow us at Capital Cross Pod on Twitter. We're going to be talking a ton about the Wizards. This is going to be a pivotal year for them, especially with the new team that they have, and the fact that they got rid of Bradley Beal, they got rid of Porzingis, Jordan Poole's on the team now, and Kyle Kuzma's back. The big three is no more. Not that it was a big three in the first place, but this is going to be an interesting Wizards team. So definitely check in with us with that new front office, and we'll be talking a lot about them going forward.
Sounds good, man. Appreciate you coming on the show as always, Kyle. Can't wait to have you back on. Hopefully we'll get you on, the next few weeks once the season kicks off. And Josh, go ahead and shut this down, brother.
All right, Ravens fans, we're going to see you next week for the Ravens Texas preview show. That's when I'll give my fucking final score. We're going to shut it down. It's time to hunt. It's time to eat. Ravens Nation, stand up. Fuck the Steelers.